You've decided to go Office 365. Of course you have, all the cool kids are doing it these days. But what licenses do you need? Is it Office 365? Or is it Microsoft 365? Is it Business or Enterprise, Essentials, Premium, E1, E5, A1, F1? Or is it Enterprise Mobility? Whew. Okay, let's tackle it. Welcome back to the Pro Tech Show, the place for tech tips and advice for IT pros and decision makers. If that seems like your kind of thing, then hit that subscribe button. Today we're navigating through Microsoft's cloud licensing options. Which Office 365 or Microsoft 365 subscription is best for you? First, let's talk about the two main packages. We've got Office 365 and Enterprise Mobility and Security. Now, Office 365 is productivity focused, and it gives you a familiar collection of applications and services. On the app side, you've got your Word, your Excel, your PowerPoint, and on the services side, you've got the likes of Exchange, SharePoint, Teams, OneDrive, your collaboration, your document management, messaging, telephony, and the like. Now, by the time you've made your way through all of the Office 365 offerings, you'll probably find that it covers the vast majority of business services people use across organizations day to day. The other big package of products is Enterprise Mobility and Security. Now, as the name suggests, it's focused on the security side of things, protecting your data and your devices against the modern threat landscape. Now, it can be used independently of Office 365, but the two are complementary. So Office 365 is giving access to your data on any device anywhere. Enterprise Mobility and Security is about protecting that data when it's on any device anywhere. It's worth mentioning that you don't have to buy the full package. You can buy a lot of the individual components separately. In fact, some of the components of Enterprise Mobility and Security are in fact product packages themselves. Azure Active Directory, for example, contains an ever-expanding list of identity and access management services. So you can pick what you need, but if you're going to be using a few of them, it might be better value just to buy the package. So where does Microsoft 365 fit in? Well, Microsoft 365 is kind of like an all-encompassing product suite. It includes Office 365, and Enterprise Mobility and Security, and Windows 10. Now whoa, hang on, Windows 10? That's not a cloud service. True, but the idea is that Microsoft 365 is kind of like your one-stop license. You buy that for every user, and that covers you for pretty much everything. Bearing in mind that EM&S includes a Windows Server CAL, and that Office 365 Enterprise comes with on-premises access rights that cover you for Exchange, SharePoint and Skype for Business and the like, and it really does cover most cloud and on-premises services. In fact, some of the services included in EM&S are actually on-premises products. Advanced Threat Analytics and Microsoft Identity Manager are prime examples. If you want to move software to an OpEx model, or you want a way to break the cost down per head rather than an amorphous blob of IT spend, then this can be a good way to do it. And because it's a cloud subscription, you get the added advantage that you're always licensed for the latest version. And this can help avoid the trap that some businesses find themselves in, where they want to change one little thing, but to change that one thing means everyone needs new licenses, and that one little thing becomes really expensive as a result. This is particularly helpful when moving to cloud services, because they tend to move quite quickly, and Microsoft require you to keep your end up to date as well. And this is something people quite often miss, and then they end up in trouble over it later. There are definitely advantages to getting everything as a single per user license. And the cost for all of those services can look quite good actually. You get a lot for it. But there's also a danger there. You can quite easily end up buying a whole bunch of services that you don't actually use. So have a look at it, do the numbers, but keep a realistic idea in your head of what you're really going to be using to make sure you don't overspend. I should point out that everything in that diagram I showed you is subject to change. Microsoft are constantly releasing, retiring and changing products in Cloudland. For example, by the time you watch this video, Intune might be no more. The current plan is that Intune and Config Manager are going to be merged to form a new offering called Endpoint Manager, so the exact products will change, but the overall theme of each package should remain roughly the same. Now you know where Office 365, Enterprise Mobility and Security, and Microsoft 365 all fit together, what about the different variations? Well, for Office 365 and Microsoft 365, the different variations can broadly be split into one of two camps. You've got business and you've got enterprise. The business plans are all named with the word business in them. So you've got Business Essentials, Business Premium, or just plain Business. The enterprise plans are named with E for enterprise and a number. So you've got E1, E3, and E5. They really like the odd numbers, no even ones at the minute. You can line the Office 365 subscriptions up a little, so Business Essentials is roughly the equivalent of E1. They both give you access to the standard set of online services. And Business Premium is roughly the equivalent of E3. They add on the Office client apps as well. Now there's an E5 which adds on additional security services and telephony, but there's no business equivalent of that, it's enterprise only. There is also an Office 365 Business which lines up with Office 365 Pro Plus on the enterprise side. This gives you the client applications, but no services other than OneDrive. It's also worth noting that when looking at the Microsoft 365 plans, Microsoft 365 Business does include services. So despite the similar name, it incorporates Office 365 Business Premium rather than Office 365 Business. As a general rule, the enterprise plans add a few extra additional features compared to the business plans. If you're familiar with Microsoft's on-premises products, then the business plans are the equivalent of everyone having standard CALs. The enterprise plans are, as you can guess, the equivalent of people additionally having the enterprise CALs. It's roughly the same sort of feature difference. There are a couple of other big differences that could push you towards the enterprise subscriptions. Firstly, the business subscriptions top out at 300 users. So if you've got more than 300 people in your organization, you're going to have to buy at least some enterprise subscriptions. Another gotcha to watch out for is that the Office 365 business plans that include the client apps do not cover shared computer activation. Now this is a feature that allows you to bypass the normal 5 computers per user activation limit. And this can be important if your staff are regularly hot desking sharing computers, or if you use a remote desktop or Citrix farm. Enterprise and Pro Plus subscriptions of Office 365 do include this feature. And just to make matters more confusing, so does Microsoft 365 Business. That's Microsoft 365 Business, but not Office 365 Business. Yeah, this is why people exist whose entire job is just to understand Microsoft licensing. Other than that, the enterprise subscriptions cost nearly twice as much as the business subscriptions. So if you don't need the extra features, you don't use shared devices, and you've got less than 300 users, save the cash, go business. So that shows you where the business and enterprise versions of Office 365 fit, and by extension the Microsoft 365 versions. But what about the A's and the F's? Well, the A is for education customers, so you're either going to buy them or you aren't. Think A for academic. And they roughly line up with the enterprise equivalent. So you've got A1, which roughly lines up with E1, A3 for E3, and A5 for E5. Now, they don't quite line up. There are some differences. There's a few education-specific features, and when we say A1, these days we normally mean A1+. And that actually does come with the Office client, so they don't line up directly, but roughly. The main difference, of course, is the pricing. The education variants are a lot cheaper, and in some cases free. So what about the F subscriptions? Well, at the minute there's only one, F1. It's F for first-line workers who don't use a computer for most of their day job. Now, as such, these licenses are quite restricted, but also significantly cheaper than the normal ones. Compared to Enterprise, they're about half the price. A user with an F1 license can access the same sort of services as a user with an E1 license, but they can only use the web apps. They can't use the full desktop applications, even if they buy them elsewhere. Now, they can use the mobile apps, but only on a small device. They can't use them on a device with a screen greater than 10.1 inches. They get an Exchange Online mailbox, but it's limited to 2 gig. They can join Teams meetings, but they can't create them. So it's not really suitable for a desk-based worker who spends a lot of time on a computer, but for someone who's out and about, maybe in the shop floor, well, it's half the price of an E1 license. Hopefully this video has helped you navigate the ever-growing collection of cloud licensing suites. If you found it useful, then hit that like button. If you'd like more detail on anything, then drop it in the comments and I could do it as another video. Speaking of another video, I'll have another one up in a couple of weeks' time. If you want to be the first to see it, smash that subscribe button and use the bell icon for notifications. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.